Julio Jones officially retired from the NFL over the weekend, and we're going to talk about it. Before we get started, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share, and to continue to support my channel. Julio Jones officially made his announcement over the weekend. He is retiring from the NFL after 13 seasons. And look, man, Julio Jones was one of them ones, man. I mean, what a career from the great Julio Jones. And look, man, I gotta start off with this one, man. Julio Jones was truly a one of one. And as an Atlanta Falcon fan, I don't know if there was a better player that I enjoyed watching over the years. I mean, there are a few guys that are my favorite Atlanta Falcons. You know, like if I had to pick like a Mount Rushmore of like favorite Atlanta Falcons from my time that I watched the Atlanta Falcons, and look, just from a disclaimer, I've been an Atlanta Falcon fan since 1998. Right, this year is 2025, and so I've been an Atlanta Falcon fan for 27 years. It's a very long time. And so if I had to make a Mount Rushmore of Atlanta Falcon players that I enjoyed watching from my time of being an Atlanta Falcon fan, I would have Matt Ryan, I would have Mike Vick, I would have Roddy White, and I would have Julio Jones. Those four individuals, Matt Ryan, Mike Vick, Roddy White, Julio Jones, would be in my Mount Rushmore of Atlanta Falcon players, especially Atlanta Falcon players that are my favorites. And so Julio Jones is in a special company of mine because, man, was he special. And look, I'll be honest. You know, at the time back in 2010, when the Atlanta Falcons traded up to get Julio Jones, I'll be honest, my reactions at that moment was mixed. You know, because at that time, on one hand, I knew the following season, that year when the Falcons went 13-3, and they got their doors blasted by the Green Bay Packers, and Aaron Rodgers just, I mean, Lord, I still remember that. I still remember that game to this very day. I mean, Aaron Rodgers just put a lid on my football team that evening, and it became clear that the Atlanta Falcons needed a big play, explosive, deep threat type of wide receiver. You know, I had Roddy White, you know, with Matt Ryan, but we knew we needed another guy. And so, on one hand, I knew that we needed a playmaker of the caliber of a Julio Jones. But in the back of my head, when we gave up what we gave up to get him, it was one of those things where I was like, man, we're sure giving up a lot to get him. And so I was a little mixed at that moment. But as time has flown by, that year I became more excited that we got Julio Jones. And years later, it's just obvious, you know, that it was worth it. Like giving up all of those assets and picks to the Cleveland Browns to trade up to number 6 to get Julio Jones, it was absolutely worth it and then some. And for the 10 years that Julio Jones has been an Atlanta Falcon, it has been an absolute joy to watch him do the things that he is capable of doing out there on the football field. I mean, it has been awesome to witness Julio's greatness. And make no mistake about it, Julio Jones' tenure with the Atlanta Falcons was absolutely great. To the point that I'm going to make this statement regarding Julio Jones. Julio Jones was the greatest Atlanta Falcons player ever. Absolutely. Absolutely. In my opinion, Julio Jones was the greatest Atlanta Falcons player ever. And that is a mouthful coming from me. Julio Jones was the greatest Atlanta Falcons player ever. And it's, with all due respect to one of my also favorites, Matt Ryan and Deion Sanders. And look, Deion Sanders, like, look, I wasn't like interested in football enough to watch Deion Sanders when he was an Atlanta Falcon. Like, I was practically a baby. I was maybe like 4, 5, 6 years old around that time. And so, look, man, I was a little kid when Deion was an Atlanta Falcon. But I also know this about Deion Sanders. Like, he wasn't an Atlanta Falcon for very long. Like, he was only an Atlanta Falcon for what, 4 years, 3, 4 years. And so his tenure with the Atlanta Falcons was short. And I have a rule when it comes to like great Atlanta Falcon players that you got to be an Atlanta Falcon for at least like 5 years, 5, 6 plus years to be mentioned when it comes to great Falcon players ever. And Julio Jones was an Atlanta Falcon for 10 years. And when you look at Julio Jones's resume, along with his abilities on the football field, like, there's not many Falcon players that matches up with his resume. Like, this is a guy that finished his career with over 13,000 receiving yards through 10 years. This is a guy that was a 7-time Pro Bowler. He was a 5-time NFL All-Pro. He made All-Pro first team twice, and he made All-Pro second team 3 other times. And so we're talking about a guy who was a 5-time All-Pro, 7-time Pro Bowler. He led the NFL in receiving yards twice, in 2015 and in 2018. And so this is a guy, and if you just look at his abilities on the football field, I mean, this dude, Julio Jones, was freaking unstoppable. He just was. This is a guy that was 6'3", 220, who could run a 4.3 40, who can beat you deep, who's with his size and frame, who can run any route in the book. He can beat you deep. He can beat you short. He can beat you intermediate. He can run every route possible. You can throw him the ball through. You can run screens through him, and he can dart past defenders. You can run reverses, hand off reverse plays to him. Julio Jones was truly a one of one, and he can play in the slot. He can play on the outside. He can do it all at the wide receiver position. And there's just not many like this dude, man. There's just not many like this dude. And when you talk about all-time great wide receivers ever, Julio Jones is top 10. Now, I don't know the order of where that top 10 goes. Obviously, look, Jerry Rice is probably the greatest ever by most people. But all I know is Julio Jones is in that top 10. Like, he just is. I mean, we talk about wide receivers, man, great wide receivers. And look, we got Jerry Rice, you got Randy Moss, you got Terrell Owens, Michael Irvin, Calvin Johnson. I get it. There's a lot of other receivers, but Julio Jones is in that top 10. That's all I know. And from my eyes, watching Julio Jones, there is no doubt in my mind that in his heyday, in his prime, he was one of the top 2 to 3 receivers in the league, without question. And when you look at, the receiving yards, like from 2014 to 2019, this is a guy who had 6 straight 1,300 receiving yard seasons consecutively. 6 straight. From 2014 to 2019, this is a guy in Julio Jones who had 1,300 plus yards receiving consecutively. And so this is a guy that's he accomplished a lot, and it went as an Atlanta Falcon. And like I said, man, this is a guy that just bleeds greatness. When you talk about his production and when you talk about his physical talent, this is a guy in Julio Jones that was truly generational. when you talk about his football talent. There's just not many guys who were as tall and big as Julio Jones was, while also running super fast, while also having the shiftiness and agility and the start, stop, footwork, the route running, the crispiness with his movements. Like there just wasn't many players like a Julio Jones at the wide receiver position. And as an Atlanta Falcon fan, hey man, it was cool as you know what, watching this dude play football at the wide receiver position, because as an Atlanta Falcon fan, it felt awesome to witness that we had a guy on our team that was absolutely unguardable. And Julio Jones was unguardable. You couldn't, there was no defensive back on the planet who could handle this man at the wide receiver position. And there were so many great moments, from Julio Jones as an Atlanta Falcon fan. We had the catch in the Super Bowl when he caught the ball over two defenders and he had his foot, darting out of bounds, the tippy tap catch in the Super Bowl. That was one of the greatest catches I've ever seen. And unfortunately, the Falcons lost the Super Bowl, and I'm not going to get into all that, but look, man, that catch was incredible. And so you have that catch, and you also, and I can't forget about this, man, the 300-plus yard receiving day that he had against the Carolina Panthers in 2016. That day when he had over 300 yards receiving over against the Carolina Panthers. I mean, incredible display. Now, by my eyes, that is still the greatest performance I've ever seen from an Atlanta Falcons football player, bar none. With what Julio Jones did on that Sunday afternoon against the Carolina Panthers when he had over 300 yards receiving. I mean, just incredible. The catch, I think the year before in 2015, he had that grab that he had over Luke Kuechly and he darted in for a touchdown. You had that play. You had the run after the catch play in the NFC Championship game against the Green Bay Packers, where he was darting past, multiple defenders breaking tackles, had that long run, in the NFC Championship game against the Packers in 16, 17. And so you had that. I mean, there's just so many, man. He had a 250-plus yard receiving day against Tampa Bay. I mean, I can go on and on and on when it comes to Julio Jones, man. This dude was spectacular as a wide receiver. And as an Atlanta Falcon fan, like, look, man, Julio Jones was one of them ones. And he made being an Atlanta Falcon fan cool. Like, I'm just going to say it. Julio Jones made being an Atlanta Falcons fan cool and fun and exciting, because every week I could look forward to watching number 11 do spectacular things on the football field, because he could do some spectacular things on the football field at the wide receiver position. Make no mistake about it. And so, hey man, look, I can't say enough about Julio Jones. And look, man, like I said before, man, like I believe he's the greatest Atlanta Falcon player ever. And it's no disrespect to Matt Ryan, who I also love. But if I'm being honest, Julio Jones was better at the wide receiver position than what Matt Ryan was at the quarterback position. And like Julio Jones in his prime was a top 3 to 4 receiver. Matt Ryan in his prime was a top 10 quarterback. And so, and look, when you talk about greatest Atlanta Falcon ever, there's only two guys in my eyes that are worthy of this greatest Atlanta Falcon player ever discussion. There's only two guys, and it's Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. And so I don't want this to be like a supreme knock on Matt Ryan, because I love Matt Ryan. I love him as a quarterback. I think he's worthy of the Hall of Fame, and he's had a great career himself. But to me, man, like Julio Jones he was one of them ones, man. Julio Jones was he was it. He was it, man. And Julio Jones to me is a no doubter first ballot Hall of Famer. No doubter. Like, there are guys you just look at and say, there's just no doubt that dude's a Hall of Famer. Just no doubt. You just watch their talent. You watch their production. You watch the numbers that they accumulated. And you just watch their ability on the football field. Julio Jones is a no doubter Hall of Famer. First ballot. You can book it. Julio Jones, no doubter Hall of Famer. And hey, man, like I can't say enough about Julio Jones. Like, I cannot say enough about Julio Jones and what he represented out there on the football field for the Atlanta Falcons. Like, I can't say enough. He was incredible. He was spectacular. He was incredible. He was special. He was generational. He was all of that and then some. And that trade that the Atlanta Falcons made to get him was 1,000% worth it. And hey, there's just no question about it. If I had to do that trade all over again, I absolutely would within a millisecond. And so, congrats to Julio Jones for a great Atlanta Falcons career. As an Atlanta Falcon fan, it was awesome to witness your greatness out there on the football field. And to Julio Jones, as an Atlanta Falcon fan, all I have to say to you is happy retirement.